I think we're all set here. Everybody's in. Um, Thank you for inviting me to this topic, this subject. And I want to say here on slide 1, before I even introduce myself, this issue, this subject is super challenging, and it's brilliant that you have it on the agenda because it's not always. So what you need to do is put it back on the agenda 2 years from now, whether it's me or somebody else, and follow up and say, what did you learn? What did you learn? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? So the lessons learned piece, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years from now is key, regardless of who's standing up here. It could just be a round table. It could be in the pub later. It doesn't really matter. It just has to happen. So brilliant that you're starting this conversation, but keep it going, okay? So emphasis on pastures and meadows, wild chervil in Randolph, Vermont. That's me, Michael Bald. Am I speaking loud enough? Okay, I can speak louder as need be, and I also am pretty active with roaming around. Great job by our hosts, and I do appreciate all the sponsorship, and again, you all attending. So I want to say thank you. What is this a photo of? Giant hogweed has a 10-year seed life, roughly, but if you're able to break seed rain and pull all the little cute seedlings, which do kind of turn pink as they enter the ground, this is the plant that will burn you or blind you for life. But if you can pull 3,000 seedlings when they're that small, they're not as dangerous because they're below knee level, and they're not, I don't like working on things that are noxious like above my eyes. So the first thing with hogweed is get it below your eyes. Then at least that part of your body is safer. So nobody, has anyone ever seen this before? See, this is cool stuff. That's what they look like. You're awake. This is what, that was probably 3,000 or 4,000 seedlings. Rubber gloves, wash with water. I'm getting right into it here. I haven't even introduced myself. Plastic, because I don't want any, if I'm washing soil off of these seedlings, there could be 5 or 6 seeds or 500 seeds, but they're going to get caught on my plastic. Biosecurity, all about it. So this is me. This is the introduction. Okay. Weed management alternatives. What is a weed? We could talk about that. Early on, I decided I was not going to use toxins because I had enough people asking me not to use chemicals. I'm certified. I know the qualification process, but I made a conscious decision. Read some books, did my research, and decided I'm going this route. And there are enough people asking for me and my services that I've never had to even think about that question. I'm full up with work. I work throughout New England, from the New York side of Lake Champlain all the way to Cape Cod. I'll be in Maine this summer, and I actually work with Queen's University, UK, even in Ireland, just to get the kind of transatlantic. How come your knotweed grows faster than ours? I want to know. I do offer workshops and trainings as well. But early on, I thought, the danger plants, who's working on parsnip and chervil and giant hogweed? This would be a good place to say, even though I specialize in the danger plants and they are invasive species or introduced or exotic, my background is not botany in academic formal training. I spent some time in the military, in the Corps of Engineers. My job in the Army was to basically turn things that were upside down right side up again, because vehicles do turn upside down. Engineers manipulate the battlefield, such as it is. I don't want to go down that road too far. What that taught me was to look at landscapes and figure out who's moving where, when, why, and how do I stop it? And obviously it was a military setting, but where I'm going with this is I don't practice war on weeds. What you do is up to you, but there's no good, wrong, right, wrong, good, evil. I admire giant hogweed, and I'm here. I invite them always. I'm coming back tomorrow, you should leave. They generally don't. And then I say, okay, I got to do what I got to do. But I'm also at peace with poison ivy. don't manage poison ivy, but I'm at peace with it. Please don't bite me. I'm not here for you, but I'm going to make these other ones disappear. But it's not war on weeds. If that's your thing, please don't use my name in association with it. Because I said this in Michigan 7 years ago. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but I've been at war since the day I was born. So I'm a veteran. I've been war on poverty, war on crime, war on drugs, Cold War, war in Afghanistan, war in Iraq again. And today, here we are with war on truth. And the audience in Michigan actually clapped. They thought that was, I didn't, it was totally spontaneous, but that's what they said. That's what they did. So it's a philosophy thing. I work by myself. I have time to think about these things all day. So that's what I've come, you see where it goes. So be at peace, admire all these brilliant plants out there, what they're doing. Try to figure out from the Japanese knotweed, what are you doing here? And how can I work to transition away from you and replace you with something else? Okay. So these are my goals. Feel free to ask questions at any time too. You're not gonna throw my train too far off the rails. University of Rhode Island asked me that I train with them every October, and Kate is fantastic, the horticulture program. She said, Mike, you got to talk about site specificity and stop cookie cuttering our treatments and making square pegs fit in round holes and everything else. You got to mention site specifics. So it was like a challenge, right? I said, okay, I got you. I'll fix your wagon. Here we go. How's that for a sentence, Kate? So if you can't see it, I realize the screen is low. So I came up with this sentence. Probably should trademark it. No, you should feel free to use this sentence. How do we decomplexify the nuances and site-specific variables on a dynamic shifting landscape in an altered weather regime? So, it's not rocket science. No, it's harder than rocket science, right? I shouldn't say that. So I don't even know if some of those words are real, like but who cares? It captures the point, which is if you think you're going to go out there, and I think it was covered quite well this morning by Heather, this mono approach. Well, 28, if I go into tomorrow, I'm going to miss my next hay chop. If you're being driven by the calendar, your calendar is going to go this way, and the plants are going to go that way, and the whole system is going to go that way, and you're going to be the one at the end of the day kind of standing by yourself. So I'm very proud of that sentence. Feel free to use it. Any questions so far? Okay. That's my official company spokesperson. The flow, just so you have it today, the flow, so you know what we're getting into. I know I'm kind of a fruit trees person, but I have to walk through lots of pastures and hay fields and meadows to get to my work. So I have some familiarity with where you're coming from. But I wanted you to see that I will touch on some of these things today, but we will get into pastures and meadows kind of at the midway point. The danger plants will lead into that. I will say a few words about Japanese knotweed because I'm pretty sure somebody in this room has it. Does anybody not have knotweed? Wow, great. Okay, nice. Brilliant. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, get a little audience participation. We'll get into Japanese knotweed. I'll explain how I group the plants in my head for management. The danger plants will lead us into herbaceous world, and that's kind of your cup of tea, everything that grows in the open spaces. I'll absolutely talk about methods, approaches, practices. I don't want to leave bittersweet and the vine species out because I came across an email from 2015 of mine. In 2015, I declared to somebody, the vines are the future. Run for the hills, the vines are coming. I've stood on the banks of the Hudson River, looked upriver, downriver, and saw no native species other than some shattered, kind of shaggy looking box elders, which are fine. They're a native tree. They're not maybe our postcard tree, but they're native. And then poison ivy. Poison ivy, I think, was bigger than the tree trunk it was growing on. Everything else on the Hudson, this was Albany, Beacon area, north, south, across the river, under my feet, everything else was non-native, and it was essentially vines. Wisteria, hardy kiwi, bittersweet, porcelain berry. I mean, it changed my perspective. So I've been saying that for 10 years. So we will talk about vines, and I know somebody will want to know about buckthorn and MF rose. MF is multiflora. Come on now. And I would like to talk about safety. And if you have questions on safety, you certainly are welcome to bring those up. I don't like leaving safety till the end, because a lot of times that happens. Oh, by the way, and that's the wrong way to do it. Safety should be peppered and sprinkled throughout, because I still have 10 of these, despite what I've been doing my whole life. Not everyone does, but I plan to keep all 10 of them. They don't quite bend, but safety needs to be everywhere. You're always welcome to ask a safety-related question anytime. Again, I'm at the table. I'm in the main room there. I'm here tomorrow. You can come get me and say, Mike, I got to talk about Japanese knotweed, and we can go for an hour. Whatever's left of my voice, you can have, and we'll get it done. So surveying. There's people here from far away. So who's from across the border? Who's from the north? I've met the Canadians already. Is there anyone from Canada? There's a few folks drifting around. Okay. Most folks are from New England. Do we have New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, that area? Okay, you can be proud. All right, Pennsylvania, right. So I'm just kind of trying to get an idea of your regionality. Is there anybody beyond, like getting out Indiana? Is Maine? That's a good question. We'll have to chat that one over. Nice, good combination. It's interesting. It's fascinating to me to go to Ireland, because I stand there. I'm there for a week, and finally, after a couple of years, I say to the assembled students and instructors, when exactly do you guys get a frost? Because I'm not seeing a dormant season. You don't have, do you have dormancy? Mike, it's a long story. We get a freeze maybe every second or third year below the 32, and the frost goes into the ground maybe a centimeter. So you think about managing Japanese knotweed and anything that goes to 6-foot depth. And I'm sitting here thinking, I've got 4 or 5 months of dormancy that I can, number one, rest the fingers, contemplate how I'm going to approach things. They don't get that. Ireland is green year round. And I'm finding parallels. We're working through some of the similarities between the coast of New England. In May, I want to go walk Rachel Carson National Wildlife Refuge, which looks climate-wise, seasonally-wise, identical to places in Ireland. So it's all business when I'm there. The Irish Sage Savers is brilliant. If you get over there, you got to go to the Irish Seed Savers and look at their heritage apple trees. Okay, I've done the geographic survey. Now I do this with every group. One word or 1 or 2 words in your mind. What is stewardship? No pressure. There's no wrong answer. But someone's going to have to take a step out there and go ahead and throw a word out. Yes. So another one. You come up with a pressure.
Love of the land.
Love of the land. Care. What else? Biodiversity. Management. I'm going to give you a clue here, because I think in terms of 3, the whole Irish thing, past, present, future. Which planet are we on? Okay, corn, bean, squash, 3. Life, death, and someone said taxes once. Life, death, and the thin places, the place between. So that spiritual realm. Come by the table and you can look at my little elf houses and fairy houses that I make, because they have them everywhere over there. Where was I going with this? Any other suggestions for Stuart? Yeah, work. That's a good answer. Okay, last chance. Thank you. Relationships is a big one. And I'm sorry. Longevity is, okay, we're getting there. I like this. Responsibility. Anything else? Okay, because we have guidance. I don't think I've heard that before. Thank you. Again, it all weaves in. Everyone says, Mike, you got to write a book. So there's going to be a chapter on stewardship. Young man in the back of the room, Sligo University over there in Ireland. It was a quiet bunch, but finally, continuity, Mike. I'd never heard that before. And I thought it was brilliant because my response is presence. From this room, we're not managing it. We're going to share information and knowledge and build relationships, but we're not managing the landscapes from indoors or behind the screen. So if you're not present on the landscape, you're not seeing, you'll see a photo later. I've been known to just not leave a site. 5, 6, 40 acres. Come on, Mike, you ready to go? No, there's still one more out there. What? There's another wild parsnip. I have to get it because it's a danger plant and somebody could get the sap on them. How do you know there's one out there? I'm just waiting for the wind to blow. And when the wind blows and all the grasses do the grass thing, the different stem structure of the parsnip reveals, because it's yellow and it's hidden amongst all the goldenrod. And it's kind of really tricky, but once the wind blows, bingo, gotcha. Presence. I give credit to the word continuity. I don't claim having come up with that. But I think all the words we use, guidance and relationships and responsibility, that is building connection. So these are the 3 that I come up with just to share those with you. And that's also the triple spiral from New Grange. See, the sun goes in on December 21st and goes down the passage. You got to watch the podcast. It's brilliant. It's like 20 minutes. I'll give you the address. Come by the table. Okay. We're going to come back to this continent now. So the tool is presence. I do find that if I can advantage the native species by not being too heavy-handed and killing everything or going after everything with a brush saw or a brush scythe or just being too heavy-handed, I can find efficiencies in my work and I can break seed production. This is the flower umbel, the top of a giant hogweed. So it is in that umbellifera, parsnip, parsley, what's the other one? Queen Anne's lace, carrots. These are all in that family. The sap can be a little abrasive on the skin. Giant hogweed will really mess up your skin. Wild chervil will give you a bubble that goes away in a couple weeks. Parsnip will scar you, deep purple scars for a good up to a year. So you don't want the sap on you. I didn't really want to be in this photograph, but doing somebody else a favor. Because I think I had already started to gear down. But everything I'm wearing is protective. And this is always, I always have this. It's the first aid kit. You never have to go more than a step to be able to apply direct pressure or wipe out your eyes if something happens. So when I get splattered, and it did happen once with giant hogweed, I instantly stop, safety protocol, wash with water, water-based, Ferrano coumarins. All you got to do is wash with water and do it, thoroughly and frequently, not skimpy. Poison ivy is the one you have to use soap on because it's oil-based. I'm not saying don't test that and think that the whole goal is break the seed cycle. And that plant right there, I counted on a parsnip once and I got to 12,000 on a parsnip. I counted a cluster and then extrapolated. I didn't do 12,000. But these guys can crank out 30 to 40,000 seeds per plant. So if you're just going to let that continue, if I was going to manage this site and not do anything about what you see behind me, I'm not ever going to get anywhere. So break seed rain is a big deal. Respond to the response comes from apple tree pruning. There's some pretty damaged trees out there. Mike, can you bring this poor tree that's been hit by lightning back to life? Okay, it's going to take 3 years. There's that number. I'll cut off the dead wood in the first year. I'll start shaping and getting it the directions I want to go in the second year. When I come back in the third growing season, I am looking at the tree, the apple or the fruit tree, and trying to see how is it responding. So I work at King Arthur Baking. The trees grow to the north, the sun's to the south. It's like, come on, guys, work with me here. What's going on? You're growing away from the sun. Who does that? Stewardship equals what? Presence. Finally, one day the sun came out. It does shine in Vermont. I come out and the sun's shining and the building is soaking up the heat and the building is from here to the wall. And these were yellowwood trees, which I'm not super familiar with, but the side of the building was soaking up heat and reflecting it, and the trees thought that's where they should grow towards. Would I have picked that up if I was just a quick pass and keep moving? No, I would have been fighting the tree. So respond to the response, in my opinion, applies to people, land, animals, plants, the whole system. I think it's an important expression. Now, this is not the focus of the presentation today, but I just want to put it in front of you and say that I don't do restoration. I feel like that's backwards looking and arbitrary. I feel it's more important for us to look at landscapes and go, my goodness, low calcium, compaction, low soil organic matter. Those are the three near truths. That's what you encounter more often than not. Compaction, low calcium, low soil organic. You think we're going to restore that to what, 1491? We don't have passenger pigeons anymore. They used to fly over and drop 2 days worth of bird manure, bird nourishment, a flyover fertilizing event. That doesn't happen anymore. Instead, we get herbicide rain during the growing season coming in from the Midwest. So you replace bird flyover, nutritious, with herbicide rain, not so helpful. So that's now an environmental constant in our part of the country. What are the other environmental constants, like gravity and photoperiod? Because the growing season, is that a constant anymore? This is what mine's done. Both sides, both directions. It's not particularly helpful with Japanese knotweed, which now comes out of the ground on April 12th or 13th instead of April 29th or 30th. Was there a question? If I'm against it, correct. I'm a fan of, I agree. The reason, one of the benefits of not using chemicals is that you can go to people and you can say, hey, I've got this knotweed patch that needs controlling. Would you like to use the knotweed, number one, to feed your goats? Number two, to feed your people? I've tried it. It's not my favorite. But I got to get better. This is paper made from Japanese knotweed. I'm not making this if I'm going to get residue, chemical residue. I don't have any interest in it. So yes, knotweed is a useful plant. Burdock is a useful plant. Barberry is useful, but for me, it's not useful if it's carrying undisclosed compounds of potentially harmful whatever. Biosecurity does not get enough attention since we're still on this slide. I just want to say everybody kind of understands clean equipment, but do we really understand it? Like I have like 24 pairs of boots because my boots never hit the ground in Massachusetts where there's Japanese stiltgrass. That's an issue. But those boots go into a bag, which goes into a bucket, which goes under the concrete pad of my barn floor. And they never hit the ground anywhere where potentially a seed could start Japanese stiltgrass at my house, because I don't want to be that guy. So we do have it coming in Bennington, southern Vermont, and I go work on it. But then I have to totally decon myself before I head north. And my brother's house in Maryland, it's like, hey, yeah, you want to go have a little walk around the house? Well, just, walk to the firewood pile. You want to see what we're doing in the yard? Sure, but I need to borrow a pair of boots because he's got stiltgrass. I'll talk about that as a specific later on. Any questions on this whole, again, I'm still in philosophy land, but I'm just trying to get you to think outside the box. Any thoughts to add there? Okay, thank you. So when I group, let me just think if I've left anything out so far. I think we're good. When I group plants in my head for management, this is the way I do it. And this is based on their characteristics or just their physical specs. This is what you have. You have rhizomal spreaders. I put a few of them up there. Phragmites would be rhizomal. Phragmites does have viable seed. Japanese knotweed, essentially non-viable seed. Japanese knotweed is essentially rhizomal control and spread and break off and propagation. Seed is, as far as we know, so much non-viable that you don't control it for seed. If you are controlling it, mowing it, grazing it, repeat cutting, it's not going to get to flower and seed anyway, so that's kind of irrelevant. But goutweed, in contrast, spreads rhizomally, but has a seed that is viable with a 15-year seed life, which makes goutweed almost impossible to control. I do have a picture of goutweed, so I'll take this moment to pass around. Keep you on your toes here.
And you're not including Canada thistle in this group?
Canada thistle would be with the herbaceous. So yeah.
No, it's right.
Yeah, it's because of where it occurs more. So there's no wrong. This is just in my head how I do it. Vines, and you understand that there's canopy vines and there's ground cover vines. When you get into herbaceous world, yes, there are rhizomal spreaders, seed spreaders, heavy seed spreaders, wind blown, and also, what did I leave out? Got ahead of myself there. So herbaceous is a world that does actually include all different kinds of propagation. Shrubs and trees are their own world, and I'll just give you the magic formula now. Shrubs and trees, 3 stress events and 2 growing seasons is enough to kill most shrubs or trees. Norway maple, Amur maple, autumn olive, multiflora rose might take a 4th cut. Barberry, buckthorn, common buckthorn, glossy buckthorn, and honeysuckle. 3.
Human and stress events like cutting.
A stress event is cutting the head off, cutting off the canopy. Of course, then you got to do something with it. So you end up half your time gets spent moving brush around, piling, doing whatever you're going to do. Girdling, when you run out of places to store it, you just girdle the trunk on buckthorn, works brilliantly. Come back 6 months later, strip off all the sprouts, hit it one more time, it will die in place. How much soil disturbance? 0. That's a big positive. Yes. Okay, I want to hear this from you all, because people will give me tidbits from their experience. And I had somebody say, Mike, I got multiflora rose. I cut it every year and it comes back. So all I said to her was, well, this year cut it twice. That would put her in the 3 cuts and 2 growing seasons world. And maybe, that she was becoming an environmental constant, which I had up here already. I'm going to read from Judith Schwartz's book, 1 paragraph about not becoming an environmental constant. Because if you do the same thing every year on schedule, the plants are going to adapt to you. That's why we have crabgrass that grows below the mower blade, or plants have figured out how to evade our actions. On this chart, because this is fun, here you can challenge yourself. What am I? If you get 1 out of 10, you get the trophy. I have to go see if I brought those. On the bottom here, I'll just tell you, this one here with the words on it is wild chervil on the top. I'm told, I don't bale hay myself, I don't feed animals, but it's garbage for hay. So very soon, wild chervil, it's going to be very difficult to find hay fields that are not contaminated with wild chervil, which will reduce the quality and maybe the value and so forth. It's not, no. It looks very similar. That white flower looks almost identical to goutweed, which flowers. And then it's very hard to look out of the field and go, is that bedstraw or chervil? I've got to be a week ahead of the bedstraw. So that's what this one is. And someone asked about goutweed is at the bottom. It's it's goutweed, bishop's weed, yep. And there's a beautiful bleeding heart in there, but everything around it is goutweed. Goutweed, bishop's weed. So I said I was going to let you play with 2. Yeah, thank you. 1 on that. Yeah, take them both, please. Pass those around. Okay, have fun. Any questions here? The other way of categorizing or grouping is to say, think in terms of control. Am I going to try to control my wind spreaders? If so, then that's if you're going to let black swallowwort get to the point where it flowers, and those pods, I always miss one at my house because I got Black swallowwort has basically followed the train tracks up the Connecticut River, up to St. Johnsbury and west to Burlington. And the headwind of the train pushes the dried fruits another 100 yards every year. And they're all the way to Burlington at this point. You got to think like the wind. That's my point there. Long maturation, faster maturation. Which one's more important? Common buckthorn or glossy buckthorn? Common buckthorn, very hard, makes great firewood, makes great carving wood, has BTUs similar to maple. Glossy buckthorn, you can almost tie it in a knot. It's flexible. It doesn't have many BTUs. I want to say it's useless, but you don't get a whole lot of uses out of it. But here's the thing with glossy buckthorn. It matures and fruits aggressively in 4 years. Common buckthorn needs about 12 to 15 years. So you've got two buckthorns, one that reaches maturity, starts making fruit in 15 years, and the other one starts making fruit in 4 years. Which case is more urgent? Glossy, thank you. Because I walk past common buckthorn all the time because I said, I got another 5 years. Go ahead, keep growing. I got to deal with these 100 plants over here. So it's hard. Where's my Felco? It's hard when you have this in your pocket and I'm just itching to put the cut on, but I got 5 more. It's not fruiting yet. They'll get this big around, but until a pine breaks off and until there's a burst of sunlight, I've seen them get, it's odd again. It's like they're so big and they're not fruiting. They're just waiting. As soon as there's a burst of sunlight, boom, you'll see thousands of fruits. So that's my way of breaking things down in my head. You can look at forage quality and nutrition as another perspective. So I'm going to do the knotweed slide, and I restricted myself to one slide because we could go hours on this. The big lesson here is with Japanese knotweed. Number one, yes, it has plenty of uses besides making paper. It does contain resveratrol, which is healthy for us as an herbal remedy. It's in the Lyme protocol. My whole point with Japanese knotweed is stop wasting our time and wasting our effort doing things that are not actually controlling the plant. Mike, I worked all day on my knotweed. Really? Tell us about your day. Well, see, I got out early. I had a cup of coffee, got out there. I was cutting at 8 o'clock. I leveled my target area, my treatment area. Then I was out there putting it in bags, and I never quite figured out how you stuff a 6-foot stalk into a small plastic bag, but people do it. Filled the back of the truck. That used to be the advice for giant hogweed too, actually. 14-foot stalk, bag the material and take it to the landfill. I think Vermont changed that, and they didn't, thank God. Taking it to the landfill. Now you got to pay $20 to get it out of your truck because they're going to charge you for that. But I don't count that as doing control work. Your 8-hour day was actually 2 hours of control. You don't get credit for taking breaks. You don't get credit for lunch, and you certainly don't get credit for driving to the dump and paying $20 or doing a burn pile. No, I'm breaking your heart. I'm sorry, but that doesn't count. Efficiency would say manage all material on site. Period. End of discussion. Is that an issue? Yes. Every town, I get it all the time. Mike, we're going to do a town project. We're going to clear out this river for these, 1.6 miles down to the bridge. Okay. Where should we put the material? Check with your town. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to get on the wrong side of the town. Check with the town, see what they suggest. In the case of Hyde Park, Vermont, the knotweed control is in the back of the photo there to the far right, where they did some stem cutting. Obviously, they've not gotten to the rest of it, but they set up what we call a weed drying station. Pallets, wooden pallets are free, number one. You're doing people a favor if you remove them from, permission, take them off the property, recycle them into weed drying stations. The neat thing here is that we had a chat about it, and I said, I think what we want to do, we're cutting at ground level. I don't dig unless I really think I can get away with it and not cause erosion. But I'll say, if you're managing knotweed, yes, if you can get into the ground and get some of those nodes out, that's a lot of energy. You're bringing more impact into that first year. And it is a positive because these sites will last. I've got a site in year 15. It's a success story site. I own that site. It's all, I'm all over it. I've transitioned it into a diverse woodland. But it took about 11 or 12 years to really get to the transition point, to the turning point. But I was efficient the whole time. There was never a risk because I cut absolutely flush to the ground. I did not leave the little 2-3 inch stobs sticking up, which will harden off in a couple of weeks. And then because we're all lazy and we don't tend to go down to the ground, we tend to bend over and cut, and that leaves like a 45-degree angle. So now you have this sharpened stob along the riverbank and kids come to play, and that's not a good mix. Flush to the ground. The canes can go on one set of pallets because it's above ground. But anytime you get below that root collar and you start getting into rhizomal material, that's what the lower pallet is. That's all underground rhizomal mass. And it's on its own pile because that's actually where the risk of spread is. But again, we're so present at this control site. They put snow fence on, they don't want anything to blow away. They put up signage, hey, don't pick up these pallets and put them in the back of a truck on green up day and take them somewhere else and think that you're doing a good thing. No, this is a control site. If one of those chunks of root material falls off the pallet, or Munchie the woodchuck comes along and does it, boink, no big deal. I come by with my mug of hot cocoa. Who told you to move? Get back on there. And just I coach it back onto the pallet and it continues the dying process. They will die. You can hold it up in the air and admire the shoots coming off a node of knotweed. It'll grow. You could probably watch it grow. I'll cut knotweed to the end of this building, turn around, and it's already like 3 inches high again. It's like, what didn't I thought I did that part. But if it's detached from the ground and on a pallet where there's airflow for summer drying and winter freezing, you come back a year later, that material is dead. I would not sell it as mulch. There is a company that's processed. So the ideal would be, if we're going to manage a knotweed site, we have a company, and there is one in Vermont, that comes through with a bucket loader and gets all of the rhizomal, the nodes. They're trying to get as much material as possible where they can chip it up and extract the resveratrol and turn it into a tincture. I support that. Of course, then somebody's still got to come back and finish it off if you're trying to transition the landscape to pokeweed and elderberry and the more desired species. So that does happen, yes. The idea here is if you're going to use the knotweed as mulch in the next growing season, use it to smother itself and enjoy the beautiful irony of that. Okay, go ahead. PRT. Thank you. I admire knotweed. I came up with this years ago because it's persistent, relentless, and tenacious. So you got to bring it. Okay. Yeah. I was going to go right by that.
Town of South Windsor, Connecticut hired goats to clear knotweed for about the size of this room for $2,000 a month. One season of it. Our town is just spraying it.
You hear every different approach. Obviously, I don't endorse the spray method, frankly, because I've been in enough presentations where they'll show me the knotweed patch. This is what it looked like in year 4, and I say, you're still spraying the same exact piece of ground 4 consecutive years? Yeah, well, the material binds up and goes inert. It's like, okay, but if you're going to use that calcium to bind 4 years in a row, this synthetic chemical, is that calcium then available to the native species we want to? It's not adding up in my head. Oh, then there's the water considerations, because essentially, especially in Vermont, it's like, isn't all of Vermont a drainage? I mean, come on. We are in 7 years of drought, by the way. We've had 7 years of consecutive extreme dry, 2 flash flooding events in the month of July 23 and 24, but you can have flooding events in the middle of a drought. 2025 was a wet spring, and then of course it dried up again and everything went bone dry. I was going to ask Heather about, people were actually taking their hay off early because the hay, the second cut was starting to recede. And I learned, she showed me, when it starts to blue out, Mike, the blades start to go bluish gray. That means that it's receding. I'm starting to lose. I got to get it cut or commit to just letting it go. Wow. So drought's an important point to remember. That's why I talk about the vines, because I have yet to see in 7 years of drought, poison ivy is not missing a beat. Native plant, best bird food on the planet. That's fine. But bittersweet, hardy kiwi, wisteria, they are not missing a bindweed. It's not missing a beat with drought. They know how to get one toe in the water and everything else that feeds everything else connected to it.
So for things like buckthorn or whatever, it's not considered a stress event. Drought. That was my question about the stress event.
Yeah, it's a good question. Drought, my thinking, okay, so the question is, what is a stress event in general terms, but does drought count? I say that drought does count as a stress event. So I'm going to go broad with this for a second. 7 years of drought. Vermont, 2023 or 2022. We had our best sugaring season ever. We pulled down 2.5 million gallons of maple syrup. That's great. That's 100 million gallons of water boiled off. Now we sent that over, I guess, to Ireland. That could have been, we could have like maybe backed off on the production by 10% there, Governor. The governor's a cool guy. I've talked to him. It's like we're cranking up the maple syrup production in the middle of a drought. Our native trees, I'm a tree guy. I see maple, ash, birch, literally just fall over in the middle of the forest. And for me, I just have to know, yes, it does make a sound, by the way, if there's no people there. I always go up to the tree and go, what is going on here? Why did you fall over? Why don't you have roots? Where's your root ball? I don't see any bug bites. And I'll stand there all day and try to figure out what brought this tree down. Because that's presence and scientific curiosity. So yes, drought is a stressor. Climate change is acting to stress us out. Excessive maple sugaring, sugar tubing, especially vacuum assisted, where you're literally sucking as much as you can get out of the tree. I'm exaggerating, but I'm allowed. There's another stressor. I said climate change. Basically, herbicide use that repeats on the same patch of ground or is in the same sub-watershed where they're doing the rail line, the guardrails, 3 agricultural fields. Susie does her driveway and Frank does his sidewalk, all with spray. That's all adding to the cumulative impact of stress. And low calcium. And we're asking our trees and our shrubs and our value crops to survive through this challenge. It's a tall order. You can contradict me.
See some plants kind of go, oh my God, I'm gonna die, and then they put out
Then,
a
yep.
lot more seeds
Yep.
and so forth.
Yep.
So it's hard to reckon what, and it might not be the invasives, but their response is better procreate before I die.
Yes.
And
So
in fact, so what I'm saying is it could actually.
yeah, I agree with you.
Non-stressors.
Yeah, so beech is a great example of, it gets beech bark disease. It's not a huge tree. It's mature, but it's not big, and it's not a bear tree masting for a huge population of bears. But it's a small enough tree. It gets the disease. It senses, I'm doomed. I'm going to die. I have to achieve my #1 evolutionary goal, which is reproduce and make more beech trees. So it does do a flush of seed. What you're doing with, so the buckthorn it seems to be so well adapted to dry and variable climate. It is one of the first ones to leaf out in the spring, and it holds its leaves into the fall. So it even can photosynthesize before anybody else and after anybody else. They just seem, actually both common and glossy. They get ahead. Yeah, and I just was talking to someone whose felling their buckthorn and then letting sheep, not goats, sheep browse on the leaves. Cows will put the chomp on it a little bit. But I don't want to dwell too much. Let me bring us back to knotweed, and then we'll get into the shrubs again, I promise. Shrubs, trees. Let me close out by saying you're gonna see these words again, or I'll use them again. If you're trying to manage a river corridor or a hayfield or a pasture, are you going to take on all of the ground at once, or the critical choke point, the entry gate where all the seeds are probably brought in, and when you bring in the tractor or the hay wagon and everything kind of rumbles because there's always a divot there and everything shakes off and everything plops down right there, and that's where the infestation starts, is at the access point to the field. Access point being our path or maybe the river's floodplain access point. Garlic mustard does that beautifully. I can tell how high floodwaters got by looking for the line across the bank. You can see the seeds float and they'll leave a garlic mustard line perfectly horizontal. You can put a laser on it. So again, you got to read that and respond to it. But if you control bottlenecks and choke points, there's a little bit of military thinking there. If I secure this bridge and don't let anybody cross it, the side behind me is theoretically safe, right? So that's what those two words are. Manage sunlight. That's a big one, especially with knotweed. So you don't remove knotweed without thinking ahead to what's going to go in its place. How many levels or layers of canopy are there? This is the only time I won't use 3 because there's a 4th. Ground cover, shrub, herbaceous, subcanopy, and tall canopy. So if you think you're going to get rid of Japanese knotweed by planting 5 maple trees, walking away, never come back, number one, they're going to die in the drought because you didn't practice good stewardship and take care of what you planted. And high canopy is not going to be enough the way light reflects and refracts around the landscape anyway. So you got to think in depth. I'm going to move on from knotweed. You know where to find me. Bring your questions and we'll hammer it out. Any final thoughts on knotweed? Okay, thank you for letting me do that.
Say timing, like you can get in there when it's, a couple inches tall before it's 6 feet tall. The short stalks are actually much more palatable, and we were able to sell people knotweed at farmers markets. It's a bunch for it. So.
Excellent. See, that's brilliant. And you brought up a good point there. The whole goal, I should reveal the secret formula, sorry. Japanese knotweed, if you can keep it below, ideally, 6 inches, that's hard. So I'll say 8 to 10. If you can keep it below 8 to 10 inches tall, the photosynthesis is not driving the growth. The root growth is being drawn from the roots. So you're gently starving out the roots over and over. Once it gets above 8 to 10, now photosynthesis is starting to drive the train. So it's very challenging, but the formula is, this is now the climate change formula, which is bigger because the growing season did this. I used to do 10 cuts the first year, 10, 9 cuts the second year, 8, 7, and I would get to a plateau, like 5 or 6 cuts, and I'm going to be out here 6 cuts a year, however long it takes to knock it down to the next level of viability. It slowly pulls back to its underground stored energy core, okay? And to make it pull back, you got to keep the stress on it. But with climate change, with the growing season doing this, I've had to go from 10 cuts the first year to 12, or I'll 13, whatever. As much stress as I can bring the first year is going to make year 2 and 3 that much easier and actually accelerate the demise. I talked to someone who said she got rid of a not terribly old and established knotweed patch, but 10 years, not 40 years. She was able to get rid of it with a little bit of excavation in 5 years with a follow-up in the 6th year. So it doesn't have to be a 15-year project. But the goal is keep it under 6 to 8 inches, 13 cuts the first year. We'll do some math. 13 cuts means, what does that mean, every week? Okay. A year is 52 weeks. There's 4 seasons in a year. 52 divided by 4 is 13. So if summer is 13 weeks, you're saying, Mike, we got to get out there and cut the knotweed every week. That's not what I'm saying. I'm kind of setting you up here. When does knotweed grow fastest? Spring, May, correct. So 13 cuts of knotweed, cuts, grazes, flaming, whatever you do, could mean 5 down to the ground in May, 3 in June, 2 in July, 1 in August, and 2 in September. It's not, this is the lesson here, do not bring your individual calendar or your, let's call it your human phenology to the landscape and say, I'm going to be here every week and you're going to work with me. No. You got to go to the knotweed and say, what are your needs? How can I meet them? And then you go apply the treatment. So you got to become the knotweed. Makes sense, right? But people have always said, I'm just going to get out and cut it every week. Well, it's going to be this tall, the first, but you'll never have that much material again after, get ready for it. Year 2 will generate some material. Year 3, the phenology may be delayed a week because it's starting to like suffer. I haven't been able to do photosynthesis. That guy keeps coming around. Year 3, it may be delayed for a week and you'll get one burst of material, cut it. It can be a foot tall, it can be 2 feet tall, whenever you get there. You'll never have that much material again after that first cut in year 3. You'll be starting to deal with, you'll collect it in buckets, bring it to the pile. And from year 3, 4, 5, you'll coast. You'll be at maybe 10 cuts a year, less material. You don't need to have this eyesore. Some people don't like weed drying stations. I say, put up a little picket fence and a cute windmill and it'll add to your property value. Not everyone's into that. I do have, yeah, there you go. I went to the massive dairy farm in central Vermont and I asked him, I said, hey, you gotta, I need your goats. You got 1,000 goats. Can I just have 10? And he said, nah, the goats have to stay here, Mike. Biosecurity. I don't want disease brought back to the herd. Okay. I'll bring you a truck full of knotweed. He's like, Mike, don't bring knotweed to the farm. So I couldn't make that connection, which I deeply regret, but he was right to tell me. My experience with knotweed is they'll eat it as if it's standing and if it's young and tender. They don't like the dry stalks. And if you just throw one into the pen, goats don't go below 4 inches. They don't want to get within 4 inches of the ground because they know where the parasites are. They don't like to bend over. Neither do I. So they're basically good at eating everything above their shoulder height. Yeah, I don't debate. Yeah. No, I don't argue. I don't argue your method. Yeah. And they'll eat Christmas trees, so I would think, but they'll do the same thing with Phragmites. No. I know somebody who manages Phragmites with goats, and they'll knock down and they'll put the munch on. I was kind of surprised at that. I was going to say one last.
Do people really have a problem with knotweed in their, I mean, we're grazers in their pastures, I know.
In the pastures, no. So that's why I don't want to, yeah. I know. No, so I'm going to keep going. So I wanted to not ignore it and come back to it later privately. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure you understand. I think we kind of touched on it already. What is your end point? You can't just say, I'm here to remove Japanese knotweed. You have to have a transition vision in mind. I don't eradicate as a mission. My mission, I tell people, I'm not going to eradicate your hogweed or your knotweed. I'm going to listen to you. You're going to tell me what you want to see on your land. Biodiversity, open meadow, Christmas tree farm. And I'm going to help you get there with these steps over time. So the transition vision piece has to be in place. When we talk about, we're going to get into the shrubs and trees at the end, but I wanted to say year 3 is where you'll start to notice a difference with meadow edges, transition zones, and anything in tree, vine, shrub world. Here's what happens. You hit the mature ones, you take off the canopy, you take off their frame and force them to rebuild their skeleton. They can't fruit because they're too busy rebuilding. In year 2, they're still rebuilding. You start going after the little germinate, the seedlings at their feet, thousands of them. When you get to year 3, again, I'm on shrubs here like Multiflora rose. When you get into year 3, other species are starting to do this and take space and sunlight. The mature ones, the large seed producers that you hit in year 1, they're dying out because you've kept the stress on them, and you've pulled thousands of. I love pulling bittersweet. They're cute, and they fill a bucket, and you can just literally sit down in an area the size of this room for a day and pull 3,000 of them. And that's 3,000 vines that you don't have to fight and tug on and come down on your head. So year 3 is when you will, if you take photos and benchmark your progress, you will see true transition at that time, going into that 3rd growing season. Nature's all about bell curves. So you need to know that while everything may peak on July 4th, wild parsnip, you got to still be out there on May 4th and try to get the one that's early ahead of the crowd. And you better not turn your back on wild parsnip because it will still try to flower in September. There will be 1 or 2. If you let those 2 get by, there's still time to harden off the seed and drop, and you're not getting ahead of the seed bank. I have a great photo here of the transition that it applies to the herbaceous world too, so I want to show you that. This is just some ID. We're in danger plant world now, which is the ones with the noxious sap. Again, it's a water wash. Christmas tree farm on the left, that's a wild parsnip. Giant hogweed on the right. This is wild chervil in a meadow, related, same family of plants. That they're losing the hay quality. You can't even hay, well, people do hay it, but the opening slide in the presentation was a hayfield in Randolph, Vermont, surrounded on all 4 sides by beautiful white flowers, but wild chervil. They were still able to get some hay, but that's what the perimeter looks like, and that's 10 years of work.
And the pollinators.
Oh, they love it. I mean, yeah,
They don't like that stuff.
yeah,
That stuff's good enough.
yeah. Parsnip. I mean, it's almost unnerving. I pull 3,000-4,000 parsnip a day. I do count because I'm working by myself.
Pollinators.
Yep. But I pull parsnip all day long, and the number of pollinators, it's not moths as much as it's beetles and flies and all kinds of bees, and they're around your head, and it's a little unnerving until you just they're just sugar high. They're just buzzing. So you can get around that. But yes, pollinators love these plants. What is the nutritional value? I don't know the specifics on that. They have a clue, but
my point is that bed straw.
Yeah, I agree.
They don't do nothing. I don't mind.
Yeah, and the biggest thing here is so nutritional quality, but also where's the biodiversity? And I'm going to make a point. That's wild chervil. It's starting to look like a monoculture. There is bed straw, but I think my animations will work here. Maybe not. Oh yeah, see, when the chervil fades and is gone by, what happens next? Wild parsnip comes in, which I didn't put in the photo. Wild parsnip's like a month following chervil. So that's the next herbaceous. And then black swallowwort, lovely black swallowwort comes in and climbs the skeletons of those 2 herbaceous and forms its seed pod, which then blows away in the wind. So it's like a revelation to me to go, wow, you can have a monoculture on the same piece of ground 3 times in one. It's not, Japanese knotweed is a monoculture like from April to 12 months out of the year. Nothing else grows under Japanese knotweed. But you can have a meadow that's all chervil and then all parsnip and then all black swallowwort in the same year. I mean, I had never actually gotten my mind around that until I saw it actually happen. Giant hogweed, the one thing I wanted to make sure you know is that I hope you're not encountering it, but it has the purple splotches on the stem. People mistake it all the time for cow parsnip. Cow parsnip is a native species. Purple stem angelica is a native species. please don't spray them or chop them down or be angry at them, because they pollinators love them. That's appropriate. Giant hogweed can cross pollinate with cow parsnip and make something that kind of looks like the both of them. Cow parsnip has a perfectly green stem, pure. It's a beautiful green all the way to the ground. Giant hogweed looks like that. But if you start seeing a plant that looks like cow parsnip, but it's got a little bit of purple in it, it's probably a hybrid. And regardless, the sap will still mess you up. So no hugging allowed. This is what I just wanted to show you. I could give you all this detail about wild parsnip. We're getting into herbaceous lands, so the open spaces. And I just wanted to show you not so much the seed head or anything else about parsnip, other than the fact that you can stand 50 yards away and catch the wind or the light just right, and that will stand out because of its frame or its structure. Multiflora rose, I've picked that out. Someone was pointing at a tree. I said, yeah, that's a great tree. It's too bad about the multiflora rose. What are you talking about? See the arcing of the vine? That's not raspberries. Or multiflora goes up into apple trees and then drops back down and gets you around the neck. Yeah, fun. So that's parsnip. Again, this is my specialty. I will give you some details on how to approach the removal for them, but kind of critical to chervil and parsnip, they do turn pink as they go into the ground, just that last inch. So if you are looking at yarrow or something else that looks kind of, the leaf is, I can't remember the one that looks similar to chervil, starts with a C too, but you follow it down to the ground. If it stays green, maybe some fuzzy, but nothing, there's no indication of pink, that's not wild chervil, it's yarrow or somebody else. So you don't necessarily, you don't have to pull that one. You can watch it a little longer and see what you think it becomes. Take a picture. You do have that power these days of the phone that has pretty much identification pretty accurately on most things. Okay, so that's your identification. What you're seeing, this is a Christmas tree farm. Some lovely old gentleman was out there whacking the trees to shape them so that we could all have happy holidays. And he was doing it with a machete in the wild parsnip by himself. But so the obvious question is, how do you manage a farm or basic agriculture in that? So what I did, what I'm still hired at this site to do, is build these weed drying stations you see in the right-hand photo. That's 6-7 feet tall. All of those were pulled before seed hardening. I still walk by that pallet, has disintegrated. That's been there since 2011. That one pile has broken down. I still walk by that because I'm still at this site finishing it off, and I'll check, and there might be a parsnip still coming up through, because there might have been a seed head that got in there. Or I just blame Munchie the woodchuck, or Bambi, because it's just easy to blame them. They don't usually have a defense when I accuse them of things like that. So this is instructive now. We're into meadows and open spaces and pastures and even the grazing element. Left to right. Southern exposure, Route 44. Something's in progress. Recording's in progress. Okay, great. What are the birds doing? Birds, parsnip, not such a big deal unless it's turkeys running across, and they'll carry parsnip. Woodchucks will cross a hayfield to the other side, dig a hole, and that's where wild chervil will start a new infestation. I have seen that. My biggest ever chervil site was 2 acres, and I had this field nailed. And then I said, I'm just going to walk the perimeter, like 20 acres. And I found 3 more chervil infestations, and there was always a woodchuck hole. Because they run through it, they're just doing their thing. It catches on, same with Bambi, it gets on their coat. Now I don't see them eating it. I don't see them eating it. It usually gets above, you'll see them go after material that's been cut once and is growing low, but it usually gets above their reach or their head level, and they tend to leave it alone. But those seeds in the month of September, October, November go with them as they dig their late season burrows, and that's always where a new infestation starts. I mean, it's 100% guaranteed. So I just want to say the other dynamics at play here, get ready for this, because I know you do this or you have to think about this. I do all this great work. She hires me for 5 or 6 days a year. I pull about 13 or 14,000 parsnip, and then everything's hunky-dory. All the flower seed head intercept has taken place, except for areas I haven't gotten to. So it's down at the bottom is the last place I haven't gotten to, further in towards the wood lines. So I've cleared, in 10 years, I've cleared everything to the left in the photo, to the building, behind the building, in front of the building, and all the way down to the last couple quadrants at the bottom there. That's to the east. But I could not get away with leaving a seed head standing, because what happens in November? The Christmas tree crew comes through and they drive their trucks in there. They run over the parsnip. They drag seed heads around. They're getting their Christmas trees. And I talked to them a few times. Can you guys please, how about we stick to this? Nope, doesn't work. The human element is pretty unpredictable. So it has not helped me. And I can think of it in terms of bringing in pumpkins, bringing in the hay the same way. If you're going to drive through a choke point or a gateway that's got chervil leaning in, or fill in the blank, knotweed or valerian or any of the herbaceous, garlic mustard, goutweed, you are going to catch those seed heads in your back pocket, on your boot, in your wheel well, and drag them all around. Maybe not out in the center of the hayfield where they probably won't survive, but definitely around the perimeter. So that's, to me, this site is very illuminating, just to show you all the dynamics that go on that we don't always realize. All right, this is fun. Parsnip, we think, has a 5-year seed life. I'm going to say that it's 6, because why else would it take 7, 8 years to clean out a site? 5-year seed life means 6 years of control, maybe 7 years if you happen to miss one, because we're not perfect. So one gets by, or Bambi brings in another seed. So the whole idea with this graphic is to show you kind of in cartoon terms what it looks like. So when I show up, the parsnip has been there for 20 years. There is a seed bank in the soil, and that seed bank has a viability of another 4 or 5 years, right? But if I can, first year plant, second year plant, these are biennials. If I can prevent flowering for the biennials, I don't mess around with the first year plants. They're rosettes. They're on the ground. They're not bolting. It's hard. I have to take a deep breath and go, don't waste time on that one. Go after the ones that are forming up. I can break seed rain and force it all into the next year. But in the next year, I've caused some seed to die off just from old age, or they've germinated and they're making a run. So you do that 4 years in a row, the only thing left is what you see above ground. Make sense? So we all know this, but it's a long process to deplete a seed bank. So when someone calls and says, I got wild chervil, I tell them, well, chemistry is not going to help you, because chemistry does not address the seed bank, and you're looking at a 10-year project. And why did you let it go this far to begin with? What were you thinking? There's a beautiful hay field. It's actually pastured as well. They do both pasture and hay on this field. I'm going to go back to those slides I skipped. This is a hay field. That's the drainage swale. So that's the wet right down the middle, right? What's the hilltops? Different land type, different land use. But what's in the meadow, the pasture, I should call it properly, the pasture there is higher and more drought vulnerable. That little swale right through the middle stayed pretty wet, and it had a healthy population of chervil and burdock, and a couple of cherry trees, actually, strangely. Burdock is like my indicator. Curly dock and burdock, when I see them, or garlic mustard, when I see burdock, it's like, it's big, it's kind of hard to miss. And I'll go after it, but I'm going to go after it after I look around and find what else got in there. because that got there somehow. Somebody's tractor, somebody's boots. Munchie was here. Munchie gets around. So here in this spot, I went to the farmer. I said, that's a lot of chervil. How did you miss that? Mike, I got in there late. She got in late. She missed the flowering. It's a little bit dipped down from the roadway, so she couldn't quite see it. Bed straw came in. The cows had been through once, I suppose, but she missed it, and it got away from her for 1 year. So I said, here's what we do. Do you have any round bales? I have round bales. How about extra ones? Or how about mulch? Or how about junk bales that you're not going to use? Okay. 23, I said, this was October. I said, I don't know the date on the photo. I think that's actually a spring shot. It was October. I said, nobody uses round bales. Everybody bales, but nobody uses round bales. They take them back to the farm and they park them someplace convenient, like some concrete lot or someplace where, yeah, they're going to smother what's underneath them, but it's a tool. Why not use, nothing's going to grow through 900 pounds of wrapped material wrapped in plastic. So those 23 bales are there if she needs them this year in an emergency because she didn't get a great crop last year. She could go get them, but they are smothering the center where the most plants are, the density, and I'm working the fringe. I've basically worked all around it, and I've been able to tell her, your patch extends 60 feet uphill of the swale of the round bales. The round bales are kind of a marker for me. And we have to keep an eye 80 feet downhill. That's our infestation zone. And I think I pulled about somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 plants around this. And we're just going to tighten it down and we will snuff them out because this is a gorgeous pasture. The roadsides are like 4 miles of roadsides that I walk every year, 3-4 times a year. And there is no chervil in North Pomfret, Vermont, even though South Pomfret, Woodstock, Royalton, Randolph, Sharon, Vermont, roadsides, chervil as far as you can see, but not here. And it's not to the town's credit, but I'm not blaming the town. A farmer, a second farmer, and then one more landowner, 3 individuals put their money together and hired me to do the work. I'm not particularly happy with that because I don't think farmers, she spends her own time, money, and gas mowing roadsides and paying me to keep chervil out of her hayfields. Personally, I don't think that's right, but I can't do it for free. So that's how it is. It's not easy being a farmer, but she's a good egg, so it's cool. Back to the giant, I wanted to make sure you see these. This is why some of these biennial plants are so difficult because we think they're biennial, but this is what chervil does. Again, this is that Umbellifera family of plants. So Queen Anne's lace will do this. All these taprooters will do this. Burdock will do it, actually. They bolt in year 2. If you don't let them flower, they'll just keep building the root. A colleague in Randolph, Vermont, kept wild chervil alive for 11 years. It's a biennial. She kept it in a pot, and she cut the flowers off. She let it go. Okay, flowered for a couple of days, whack. No hormones getting down to the roots saying we accomplished our evolutionary objective, turn it off. So the hormonal world said, start over. So she kept that one going for 11 years. But had she allowed it to flower and make seed, you would see the core dies out, but you see the 2 lateral root buds over there on the right? That's what survives. And here's the one on this one. Right there, you can see that will survive and make, the plants can live forever, essentially, because they just keep, whoever bolts and flowers, the lateral root buds survive and start the biennial process all over again. It's pretty clever. So that's why this is the tool of choice, the potato fork. I have one for each hand. I name them. I'm very affectionate. This one is Spud. I broke 3 in the drought year. So, I'm not kidding when I say we have a drought. I don't usually break tools, but I broke 3 in the last growing season because it was a rough year. So you've seen that. You saw the fun. This is what solarizing looks like. So I'm trying to help you out here with meadow, pasture, grazing land wisdom. Brian O'Hara does this in the Tobacco Road Farm in Connecticut. He uses sheet plastic before he plants. I'm not going to say I know what he plants. He'll put down sheet plastic for 24 hours, say it's June, and then he'll move it 10 feet over and leave it again. So he'll move this sheet of plastic to get a burn down effect of his cover crop. And then he'll put in what he's trying to grow. So sheet plastic for 24 hours with enough heat is a burn down and probably a little bit of penetration down. When you use heavy plastic, 4 mil, 6 mil, clear, or in this case, milky, I'm keeping this down for 40 days, 30 at least, maybe 40 just to be sure. 30 to 40 days of an airtight bubble on the land. This guy's patch of ground had parsnip uphill, downhill, all around, but this was the core of the patch. I said, Steve, we can get 5 years of work done in 40 days if we sterilize this soil with heat. It will go, with that airtight bubble, the heat will go 10 inches at least into the ground and sterilize everything, fungi, microbes included. However, it's not a legacy kill-off because you can re-inoculate and you can compost and bring the microbial world back to life fairly quickly. It's not a lingering residue or toxin residue that's left behind. So 40 days, you can pull that up, move it over, put it down again. You can easily get three or four solarizing events in one growing season. May, June, July, August, and they say you can do it almost 12 months out of the year. I don't think it would work today. You cannot have water flow. You cannot have moving water. You can hear it, or if it's really wet, water wicks away heat. It won't work, at least not to depth. But actually, even when there's poison ivy going in, trying to get in underground and get in, it kills that too. So solarizing is really good for seed producers and shallow rhizomal spreaders. Okay, I'm a big fan. I'm not a fan of plastic. A lot of variables. One of the variables is, do you use 4 mil or 6 mil plastic? 4 mil is more clear, more sunlight gets through. But Bambi comes along and punches holes in it. So you go with 6 mil because it's a little stronger, but now it's milkier. This is 6 mil. It's milkier. It does hold up except when cows walk on it. So then you've lost your air tightness and you have to fix it. Yes. Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, correct. There are other plastics you can use. It's not about, so rubber or plastic. When I first looked up solarizing in 2014 to say, how do I do this? It made a point of like, it's clear plastic, not black plastic. I'm like, okay, no explanation why. Black plastic is a smother. It's a photosynthesis denier. Clear plastic, again, this is above my pay grade. Clear plastic with a mulch layer. How much mulch? That's a variable. It's on the poster. This poster, this one here, it's not laminated, but this tells you how to solarize. So we took a round bale. Steve, I said, I need a round bale. He said, you want first cut or second cut? I said, no, he was serious. I'm like, I don't want your best hay. And I never really know what people consider their best hay. Some people want taller, some people want more leaf. Some people with horses actually want the nutrition to start going, they cut late because they don't want their horses all super energized in January. I never knew that. Wow, you're not concerned about quality? No, this is for the horses in winter. I want them to be a little like sedated maybe, or a little more chill, right? You don't want them. I don't know. I don't do horses. I don't do cattle. Steve said, I'm giving you first cut. Hey, Mike, it's going to have longer stems, which will have more insulating value. So, wow, okay, let me write that down. I would have never thought of that. So we, all of you, us, all together, we have this brilliance, and we all just getting together like this, we bring it out. I would have never thought, right, stem length, they're hollow stems. Wow, okay? So a lot of variables. Try it once. You can email me and say, am I doing this? Send a picture. Is this right? Is it upside down? Whatever. I'll give you my 2 cents. If it works, do it again and kind of reset your variables. If it doesn't work, figure out why. So that's solarizing with clear plastic. I just wanted to show you this parsnip. Got run over, got flayed right up the whole stalk, just got absolutely shattered. It was held to the ground by a hair of just one little thread of fiber, kept it to the root in the ground. But this is flowering a week later, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places along the shattered stem. I admire that. But and then of course I pulled it or forked it. But that's why mowing is really not. I know Heather talked about, I'm not a fan of right in contact with the ground. 4 inches is great, but parsnip will flower at 2 inches. It's not going to make 2,000 seeds, but it'll make 5. And then you didn't, one plant is now 5. You're not getting ahead. Okay. I showed you this one. There's spud in the foreground. See, here's my glove to show you how the fingers get wet. I know, is it hard to see the bottom? I don't think I can raise the screen. I'll keep us going. You probably have questions on some of this. I was watching John Kempf last night, I think, talk about mulching and controlling weeds with boron. He's a big fan. Go to his site rather than me speak for him. John Kempf, Advanced Eco Agriculture. Okay, thank you. Brilliant. Just put it on play and just float along and soak up his wisdom. So he was talking about mulching, boron, and the thing I want to talk about tilling is with this giant hogweed, tilling doesn't have to mean going deep. I mean, I've seen the arguments for keyline plowing, and I understand, okay, you're breaking the pan, you're trying not to disturb the mycorrhizal network, what there is of it, too much. So you're not going disc, you're not tilling aggressively, too aggressively. But this here is a giant hogweed patch next to a cemetery fence on the right. Hogweed, you've seen the pictures. Become the plants, put aside the human stuff, okay, the calendar and all that. The seeds are big like watermelon seeds. There's no way those can get deep in the ground unless I get involved and turn everything upside down and make them go deep. Okay, going to use all my candle power here. The seeds must be riding high in the soil. Even though they've been dropping for 20 years, they can't get in deep, even with frost heave. So I said to the landowner, you have a rototiller? Oh, yeah. This guy had lived there for 40 years and he still had burn marks, whereas he'd worn sandals as a kid. So the strap of his sandals protected his skin, but everywhere else he still had sunburn appearance on his feet. So he wanted to help. He wanted to see this plant gone. So I said, you rototill this strip, 10 feet wide by I think 60 feet long. You're just helping me out. Again, we're going after the core of the infestation, but I want you to go shallow, 2 or 3 inches. We're not digging deep here. I just want you to, scarify it. Just turn things and make everybody germinate, which they did. I came through, and in the next 2 years, that's the photo you saw probably on the back of my truck to open up with. Thousands of seedlings. They were all inspired to germinate. 10-year seed life. Most of that was all pulled within 2 years. We outsmarted them. Although I was there last summer and there was still one there. 2009, 2008, 17 years later. So what happened to the 10-year seed life? Year 17, that doesn't make sense. So I'm always checking my sites. And so I found 2 plants left at that site, and either they got by or the seed life is a little arbitrary. We're still in meadow, pasture, hayfield world. I wanted to put this slide up and tell you the plants that I tolerate because, number one, they're not terribly difficult to get rid of. Burdock at King Arthur Baking was taking over a drainage swale the size of this room. The drainage swale needs to function and collect water and drain the parking lot. It can't become a burdock thrash. So I said, well, I got rid of all the parsnip. You guys cool with me doing the burdock and the drainages? Yeah, if that's what you think makes sense, Mike. Okay, I'm on it. 2 years. Obviously I cut the mature ones. I pulled seedlings. I kept the stress. It was almost like a shrub. Within 2 years of stress, like 3 visits over 2 years, so 6 total visits, burdock was essentially gone. Not completely, but functionally gone. That's like not, to me, that's not difficult. Pokeweed, native, keep it. It's a placeholder. Nobody, does anybody like pokeweed? Don't eat it. It's a great placeholder. And if there's 2 things that compete with Japanese knotweed besides ferns, it's pokeweed, the native, and burdock, the non-native. But I'd rather have burdock. I would happily look at burdock for 10 years, knowing I can get rid of it in 2 years rather than have to fight or challenge or transition knotweed. You don't want knotweed or goutweed for that matter. So tolerate burdock if there's any room to do that. Bull thistle and mullein, I've never seen them really take over, and the potato fork will do it. So I tolerate them because I've never seen them become a monoculture. And they are good bird food in the middle of winter. Mullein, sometimes, yeah. 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 So I let mullein go because until it becomes out of control, it's all about balance, and it appears to stay in balance. So I'm good with that because that's really what we're after. And Simple Soil Solutions, Vale, Dixon was talking about tolerating chicory because it has a lot of good value, even for grazers. And chicory, John Kempf mentioned that as an underseeding, as one of the herbs that he uses, or the farmer that he was talking to. We underseed whatever the crop is. We underseed with grass, herbs, and some kind of clover, alfalfa. So 3 plants to grow vegetatively below the actually it was a seed producing folks. So they were trying to get flowers or some kind of seed production that they could then harvest and sell as seed. But they were using the ground cover. They were using chicory as one of the ground covers. Maybe chicory is, I don't even know if that one's perennial or annual, but I believe first year is at a rosette. Anyway, you keep it low. It's a late season, I'll say that. And I did put a note here at the bottom. Anybody have anything to add? Is there any other plant we tolerate? Because it's just not, I don't particularly care for celandine, but I can't seem to get rid of celandine. And we need to talk about bedstraw because I know that's, and in a very quick response, I will say bedstraw. I've pulled a few at my own house, but I don't have a solution to bedstraw when it takes over an entire pasture. I just know my smart farmer told me, you got to get the cut height right. So she actually would take a block of wood. They hire this fantastic lady to come through with a brush saw, weed whacker, every kind of device under the sun. She's got a truck full of them. And she mows it and she goes at it a little too aggressively. I mean, she'll just go miles in a day. I've never seen her stop. She just lowers her shoulder. But they had to put a block of wood under it to kind of underneath the disc to get her to actually come up off the ground because she was going too low. And the theory was if you mow high enough, you get enough competition with bed straw. I have had people say changing the pH or adding nutrients it just makes happy bed straw. So that's not helpful. Same with bindweed. I emailed some folks who dug a trench around the bindweed patch, which is if it's not in your hayfield, that's just because you hay it off and it's there. It doesn't get the chance to thrive. If you miss a year, it'll probably pop up. They excavated a 4-foot trench around a bindweed patch the size of this room. Raspberries were there. They tried to change the chemistry by, I don't know the formula, but they added some chemistry, put pipes in so they could keep changing the pH and certain nutrients. They black plasticked the whole patch in between the trench for 9 years. She just took it off last year and she's like, I'm not seeing it in the patch yet. Other things are starting to break through the plastic, but the bindweed is coming back outside the trench. I mean, right? So they had an excavator. They paid a lot of money to get that done. Bindweed, I'm not sure I have the solution for it, but I just know that the vines are the future. And Who does? Yeah, goats are all, yeah. Goats are all over bindweed, that's true. Okay. So grazing, I mean, as an individual, I mean, I'm trying not to do soil disturbance. I don't think I can get deep enough with a potato fork to alter bindweed world. So hogs and pigs are the one animal I don't recommend, or I'm not familiar enough with them. I tell people grazing is great because number one, it's probably cheaper than a person. You can keep them, you can do your rotational thing and get good results. You get results that are like 75, 80, 90% solution and have a person come through and finish it off. That's kind of the combined approach. Pigs, I always thought were a little bit too much. Oh, there you go. Okay. Okay, there you go. You do have to worry about animals with compaction and actually too much soil disturbance, which I think the pigs, it's an issue with pigs. Chicory, I'm a fan because it's got that blue color too. I think I told you earlier, eradication is not always my goal. The goal really is transition. I told you about bottlenecks and choke points, and I've always said that it is so much more powerful or simple to have an infestation that is, imagine the road to your house, knotweed all along that road. But if you can consolidate that into a hot spot at the front end, the back end, and one in the middle, 3 hot spots is a lot easier to manage, whether you come back and torch it or smother it or let it go ahead and go to seed right there. Buckthorn or whatever you're putting into a hot spot is a lot easier to manage than having hundreds of meters of burning bush, dropping seed everywhere, or whatever other example you want to come up with. Yep. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I also see amazing stuff too.
Yeah. Good.
Horsenell is one that's really a problem. Also, barberry, because it's so sort of popular that a lot of people really won't eat it.
Right.
We really eat a lot of other stuff, but those are the 2 that I mean, the non-native problems.
Gotcha.
But I don't want to rush you. I just want to, I'm reading stuff.
No, I do want to leave time for questions. I'm seeing that I have about 20 minutes, but I want to leave time for questions. So I'm going to do my best to like wrap up in 10 minutes so we can ask questions. So barberry, I'll include in the shrubs. Since we're in herbaceous land, I don't have a solution for speedwell. It's in my own yard. It's like annoying. It doesn't matter what it's growing in because it's like it can be in compacted with crabgrass. It can be in fluffy under my oak tree where I'm doing everything I can to make good soil so I can grow Emmerblau wheat because that's just kind of a really cool wheat. But wow, the speedwell just, it comes in from every direction. I'll pull it up 6 feet out and it's like Veronica Speedwell, I think is, it's just a look. Yeah, it just does that.
Yeah, it might be a different one. It's a problem in people's pastures. Like it's taken over.
No, I'm hearing that. No, he talked to me already. Yep. Stephen. Yep. Yeah, he says it's like visible from space. You can look down, you can see the color of the grass, and then where it changes the hue of the green, that's because it's either wet or it's speedwell. Yeah, because I don't believe box bed straw would be visible like that.
It's not the pretty one in the flower bed, it's tall. It's American, it's flat and has these
Yeah. Yep.
It's sort of glow in the dark.
No, I'm familiar. I'm familiar with the visible. So let me take the let me attempt to take the graceful exit here and say this. Speedwell was identified in 2026 as an issue of concern for us to do a little experimentation with our own sites and take some specs like, I know you're doing soil tests, so get the pH and maybe if there's a mineral deficiency, note that. And let's come back like I recommended in 2 years and 4 years and first start, let me do an entire presentation on speedwell control. But let's try to, I'm admitting to you here, it's not one that I manage and I can't go through my archive Rolodex and think of a situation that would help there. So I'm going to say, let's move that ahead, but it's on all of us to like take this on as a science, as a challenge, and let's figure this one out. Because I wasn't aware that, I mean, I did get word, a month ago, this is going to be on the agenda, but I didn't have a solution at that time. But let's bounce it ahead if we could do that. Yep. I got that one too. Floodplain dispersal. It's in my backyard. I'm not happy about it, but again, that one probably because I work at my neighbor who's in the floodplain, and that's one I pull by hand. Now you're probably talking vast coverages, so I'm not being helpful with that. Let me cypress spurge. And so is, for that matter, so is the creeping buttercup, which I just want to say in the last couple of days, I did do my homework on bindweed and buttercup to try to get an idea of what the seed life is on these. Now, I go to the universities and I say, okay, so what's the seed life here of the garlic mustard? And Dartmouth will say 2 years and Cornell will say 20 years. Not, or maybe vice versa. And I don't mean to throw them under the bus, but we can chat. But it's like, you guys, that's too much of a range. You can't be 2 to 20. But I know that the creeping buttercup is anywhere between 20 to 40 years seed life. I mean, it spreads at ground level. So it's almost like, who cares about the seed life? You got to control it at the ground, but you can't let it seed. Bindweed, what I saw, I hope she succeeds with her 9-year smother, 40-year seed life. So that's why I took photos of the wild parsnip, which I have at my table and which I showed you a few of. The books will say one thing, but the books in academia were written largely 20, 30 years ago. My botanist in the U.S. Forest Service was stunned when I brought her a garlic mustard that was over my head, 6 feet plus garlic mustard. She said, "Where'd you get this?" So right down by the river. Good soil, but no competition. It's like plants are not going to grow any taller than they have to. Hogweed can go 14 feet high, but it's perfectly happy to stop at 8 feet if it's got everything it needs and doesn't need to grow any higher. That's my experience with, I don't know, I don't grow forage, so maybe I'm not 100% accurate there. But those seed lifespans, I don't find them to be accurate, but they're incredibly important to knowing how much control, how you approach a site. I'm wondering if this next slide doesn't help answer a little bit some of the questions. let me give you the introduction as I lose my voice. This is the field down the road from me that was flooded by Irene 12 feet deep. So my neighbor's hay field, it's actually, I guess I could choose better words, but it was 4-foot sand dunes. And I told her, I said, "Sue, this is junk hay. Not that it's my job to judge her hay, but there's a lot of silt and a lot of sand. And it was really, but the grasses did come back. This is 2017, so 6 years later. She did get the sand smoothed out or removed. So she did not leave that, which I don't know how I felt about that. The road is at the top of the photo. So you can see telephone poles up there at the top. The road actually got washed out. So the road was rebuilt with stone brought in from the lowest bidder. So when I went to the state, so you see the river way off to the right. You can tell me later, boy, that's a great looking river, Mike. There's no Japanese knotweed over there. Thank you. After Irene, Japanese knotweed wanted that space. And you can see, I can't really walk over there because I'll go off screen. I'll be right back. That's where the knotweed starts, in here, right? I'm still here. Okay. I keep them on their toes too. Wake up out there. I said to the Secretary of Transportation, where'd you get your stones from to rebuild the road? Respectfully, thank you for rebuilding our road. We were an isolated island for 5 days with no power, Little Royalton, Vermont. Some people busted an access road to the interstate. It was known as exit 2 7/8. I was the only way out. They had to bulldoze. The challenge along the river was cypress spurge, maybe one other species, and Japanese knotweed. The challenge along the road, where she went and got, not faulting her, because she bought stone from who knows where, she brought in, or the stone trucks brought in, purple loosestrife, bull thistle, Japanese knotweed, wild parsnip, wild chervil, 7 total. I'm leaving 2 out. Yeah, whatever all of it, right? There's burdock, yep. They didn't help us out. They rebuilt the road and then they drove away. Hey, enjoy your road. So here's what I said to Sue. I don't want to eat too much clock here. I'm going to shorten the story. Sue, your hayfield is always going to be under pressure from Route 14. Because Route 14, even though I patrol it, I just keep down parsnip and chervil. She's still going to have everything else, burdock, various little grassy weeds, celandine, you name it. They're still going to try to come down Route 14 and into her hayfield. Here's what we do. We leave the burdock as a wall of solid green. And she's 80 something years old, you get on the tractor and you do 2 laps. In Europe, it's called the sown grass strip, SGS. You keep it mowed 4 inches. I don't know, you can go down to 1 or 2 inches. Mow it tight. So that, now, she didn't quite do it right here. What's wrong with this picture? Thank you. She's venting into the clean. She should be venting into the contaminated. Yeah, right? So good on you all. She is mowing the wrong direction, but we let it go for the photo, and I can point it out. Yes. Yes. Exactly. So that's true. Yeah. Do you want to go talk to her for me? So I'm glad you all get it. So the idea, here it is. Here's the takeaway. When you have something valuable, playground, hayfield, pile of gold, I don't care what it is. When you have something valuable, put a sown grass strip around it, super tight. It's a biosecurity dead zone. Okay, we don't like lawn, but in this case, okay, I make a little joke out of it. Sue, I can come out and walk I think it's 13, 14 acres. I can come out, walk your pasture with my beverage. I'm not going to strain myself. I walk that little sown grass strip. I admire the burdock, have another sip, and then I look at the clean side and I keep walking. Oh my goodness. Look who, wild chervil, as a biennial, was able to jump down into the sown grass strip, somehow survive. I would hope that's impossible. And then get over into the hayfield, survive year 1, become a second-year plant, and put out a flower head, which is going to draw my eye, and try to seed into the valuable space. I mean, a sown grass strip, the question is how wide? And I don't know if 6 feet, I think it kind of depends on what the threat is, what the seed import threat is. So 2 passes, but it's going to vary. So that's another X factor in your approach. Now, would that work with parsnip? Is yes. Yes. Yep.
So we never mow the parsnip on
right,
but for motorcycle traffic.
right.
Anyway, the wind blows it constantly into, my field, but my
Right.
sheep love it. They eat all the parsnips. We've got others that eat them.
But it's still on the shoulder of the road,
Still,
right?
time I stop grazing, the sheep will-
So thank you. Another takeaway would be, instead of taking on a patch necessarily, like seeing the patch and saying, oh my gosh, I have to eradicate the whole patch. Start by going after the lead edge, which is usually the edge that's being blown or water spread, however it's spreading. I mean, I'll blame Munchie again, whichever direction Munchie runs. But here's a good one: whichever direction the mower comes up the road. I mean, usually they go with traffic. So when they get to your boundary, your property line, they always raise the deck. They never get the one parsnip at the telephone pole either. I've got a picture of it. So what you want them to do is, about 20 feet before your property line starts, you want to put in some kind of a pole, some kind of an obstruction. I never said this. So they have to raise the deck, which causes shake, and then they put it back down, everything shakes off. The Christmas tree farm lady, I do her property, and I said, I'm going 20 feet further down the road to give you at least that much of a buffer. So while they never get the telephone pole, and then they're always careful at culverts, so usually a little bit of escape there. But the one thing I never see here in New England, and I lived in Tennessee and Texas a little bit, is the cattle bars. If you're going to drive onto a property, does that work with ice? Probably not. But in our seasonal preparations, I mean, you got to like secure the house, storm windows, winter-proof, drain this, do that. Why couldn't we, on November 1st or December 1st, raise up the rumble strip gate? It's basically what it is. It's a cow gate. There's no physical gate. You have to drive over it, rumble. All the mud and seeds would fall in right there. They're still there, but you come through with the flaming wand, or you've got a hot spot, not dispersed all through your property. It's a good thought. So I know I've kind of been very indirect with cypress spurge, speedwell, box elder. I admit, we're going to close out with shrubs and vines. I wanted you to see this guy here, the sown grass strip. I think this crowd knows that the difference between grazing and browsing. I did want to say, when you talk to your towns, the worst thing that I see in towns is when the town gravel pit is choked with knotweed or phragmites. I mean, you just kind of stand there and you go, all together, they're going to replace a culvert on Route 6 today. What could happen? And I'm on my fourth now example that I've witnessed, that I've seen, where Japanese knotweed has been installed with or adjacent to or inadvertently in a home septic system. And that is a disaster. So that is an absolute disaster that is incredibly pricey. I'm going to move on to the shrubs and vines. Yeah, the road crew, and I want to say I salute road crews because they do great work. They work hard, and it's not the road crews that are the primary responsible parties for spreading weeds. I mean, they do their share, but frankly, it's the private contractors who fail to practice biosecurity, and it rains for 3 days straight, and they work hard, they sweat, they push snow all winter, then like they take 1 day off, clean out their leaf blowers. Let's talk about leaf blowers. Let's talk about leaf blowers. I would wonder about, I'll stay on subject, getting a drying station started at the gravel pit. So, I mean, but you got to have people who know this, and the other place would be the transfer station. So as long as you have people who can handle the challenge of, that's where we dry Phragmites and knotweed. That's why it's raised up on a rebar bed or a bed of pallets, so the sun can hit it and kill it. And but don't let that get over to where we're pulling gravel. and we're humans, we all make mistakes. But that is a huge issue that towns inadvertently in road repair world, we're spreading knotweed just all over the place, and I can't keep up with it. There's not enough goats on the planet to chase after every road crew. But that is a broad. The question is, how do you keep those sites clean, the gravel pits and the town resource areas, and then where do towns set aside disposal areas for rhizomal spreaders like vines and knotweed? I'll agree. Yeah. I'll agree with that, and I'll just add, I wish we could pull gravel from the rivers, because we could do that responsibly. We could do it responsibly because the rivers are carrying more gravel, more sand, more silt than they would if we weren't here. There's always a baseline load, but the impact of humans adds. So if, yes. Thank you. And yeah, I know. I could count the trucks going by every day with full of sand, and that all goes into the river, and our rivers are a dead zone. So could we responsibly pull sand and gravel from the river? Yes. Could we, if a town screws it up, say, hey, you guys, we gave you something, you messed it up, didn't get it right. Now you get to go out and buy your own. But you could do that. We don't do it. It's a change that needs to happen. I'd like to move us to Japanese stiltgrass just so you get the visuals. This stuff, I do manage it in southern Vermont. It's a nightmare in Connecticut, Maryland, Pennsylvania, to the point where the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, I asked them, how do you guys do projects? How do you go into an area and try to change the dynamics? And they basically say, if we can't really, really, truly justify going into a place because we know it will fall to stiltgrass, we don't go in. We don't harvest. We stay out of these areas if we don't want stiltgrass in. So it has a little moonbeam stripe. It looks like, whitegrass. Sometimes it looks like deer tongue, Pennsylvania smartweed. Sometimes it can look like other things, but it's on stilts. I mean, you can literally lift it off the ground. It doesn't really tap in. You can see that moonbeam glow to it. It flowers, but you don't see them. It flowers super tight to the stem down in that leaf well, and that's why biosecurity, absolutely number one. The plant that comes in behind it is called wavy leaf basket grass, and together the two of them are an absolute blanket, and regeneration, just anything that's able to get through these two promptly gets eaten by Bambi or smothered by the vines. I can make this little slide. Everything's available. You guys can just email me and say, I hope they'll share this. I think it is recorded. I can help you or direct you if you have stiltgrass issues, because you don't want to ignore that. Hey, we're in vines and shrubs. Believe it or not, there's a stone wall in there. This is where my colleague Gary Hawk would have come in. His company is Forest Savers, Forest-Savers. He would come in here with his 4 million BTU flamethrower and his shredder mulcher on the front of his tractor. It's got a ripping rake and then a shredder mulcher. He did a big swath of this hillside and literally ripped and pulled stuff down with his tractor. The whole idea with Bittersweet and the vines that go into the canopy is you have to get them out of the canopy. You don't have to pull the vine out of a tree and pull it down on you. Cut it off. Never let Bittersweet, that can be this big around, get into the canopy and fruit up there. Because now all the birds are taking it everywhere else. It will drop. Most of seed spread, honestly, with buckthorn, Bittersweet, honeysuckle, multiflora rose, birds take 1,000 seeds away, but you'll still get 10,000 that drop into the shadow of the bush or the vine. So you got to get the vines out of the canopy. Bittersweet grows, I give credit to a colleague who discovered this. There's always one root going east or south, whatever, one root going the other direction and one going straight down. If you try to pull, if they're not that big, if you pull and uproot, I do pull them and I try to get 2 out of 3, because then I feel like if I can track and follow along, I've weakened it by 2/3. It'll resprout, keep the pressure on, it'll still flower and make seed on the ground. Go ahead, because the birds aren't going to get you. I can come through and scythe and pull, harsh language, all my other secret techniques. At least it's not being spread by birds and wrecking the tree canopy, because now we're on safety. The overhead, I'm back to my favorite number. Overhead hazards around the feet, poison ivy, unless you're south of Vermont, which is every other state in New England, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, poison ivy does grow up the trees, but at your feet, poison ivy is an issue. I always tell people old steel is everywhere. You're going to run into barbed wire if you're working transition zones along stone walls or pastures. Now I always fear skiing and catching one across the shins, or falling backwards with an armload of parsnip and falling onto a steel post. Yeah, I have a runaway imagination. And then always look up. So that's the basic chainsaw rule. Look up, look down, look all around. You have to be looking up, because if you're just doing knotweed and you never look up, that tree limb is going to change your life. So the other big deal is ticks. And I guess I can probably close out by saying, that's just sites. I can close out by saying, I'm wearing my glasses today that don't have the sidewalls, but once I start doing trees next week, apple trees, and getting into my spring work, you can get these side guards or just wear just the heavy duty goggles. I tell volunteer groups, I can't replace eyeballs, or you don't want me putting your eyeball back in. So protect your eyes. And the kids are always happy to wear glasses once they've heard Dr. Mike is the one to fix them if they get hurt. So the rest is just maps, and there's hogweed, and I'll just thank you with these 2 slides. There's my email, and I hope to be a reference for you moving forward. And I do urge you to come back in a couple of years and repeat, grow this conversation. Thank you.